What do y'all do for fun? And you can't say TikTok, Snapchat, or YouTube. Like, what do you do? What do you do for fun? And read. Okay, what else? Talk to me. Talk to me. Sleep. Sleep is a solid pastime. What else do you do? Walk. Fly. I'm so confused, but I respect it. Okay. Okay, what else do y'all do? You say cars? Just cars. That is the verb. Okay, all right. Respect. Any of you want to know what I do for fun? So, one person. And that's what I thought I would get. I don't really think y'all care what I do for fun, but I was going to tell you anyway. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. You said I have kids. That's awesome. Here's the deal. For Christmas, I asked my family to hook me up with a new hobby, and so my grandma ended up buying me a sourdough starter. And if you don't know what that is, it looks like powder, but it's a flour, not like a flower like blossoming, like flour like to bake. And I bake my own bread now from scratch every week. I want you to see the beautiful bread that I baked. Guys, look at that. It's, what? Lloyd has seen it in person. Maddox has tasted it. There's people in this room who have tasted the sourdough. It is a gift to the world. Now, here's the deal. If you have never baked bread before, the expert that I am would like to teach you a couple things. So first off, if you just take flour and water and mix them together and throw it right in the oven, you basically get a tortilla. You ever done this? I've made homemade tortillas before. Because somewhere deep down I think I am Mexican, but I'm not. So, but I have made my own tortillas. If you just do that, nothing happens. What I do with the sourdough, though, is I have to leave it out for like an entire day. And then I take the starter and I mix it with more flour and water, and then I mix that and leave that out for 4 hours. And what happens during the 4 hours is the bread begins to rise. Now, why does it rise? Anybody know? The yeast. What did you say? Somebody said, okay, yeah. Okay, y'all know a little bit. And so the yeast makes this bread expand. Now, here's what's crazy. I put 0 yeast in it every single time. I do 0 work putting yeast inside of it. That yeast is so dang sneaky. It gets right in there. It's in the air. Do you know what I love? This is really wild, but this is a dream. Apparently, bakers, 90% of the bacteria on their hands is shared with the bread that they bake. I am my bread. Me and the bread are one. Okay, so, but here's the deal. The yeast is invisible, and it sneaks in, and it gets inside, and it blows this thing up. And I want to talk to you a little bit about something that Jesus called yeast. It was a thing that was really tiny. It was a little secretive, but it got inside and it blew up. And it's one of the things that Jesus is against. Last week, we started a series, Jesus Verses, and we talked about that there are things that get Jesus so riled up, get Jesus so excited, get Jesus to be feisty, that he's willing to do whatever it takes to make his point, to say what needs to be said, to speak truth. And so Jesus gets feisty about some things. We talked last week that Jesus has low tolerance for when we make up rules and add them to the Bible. Jesus has so little tolerance for when we put man-made rules on top of God's rules because we make ourselves God. That's what we're doing when we add our rules. And that makes Jesus feisty. He gets in it. But there's something else, and it literally occurs right after he leaves the Pharisees' house. So if you were here last week, we started in Luke chapter 11. You could go there in a Bible if you have one right now. Luke chapter 11, Jesus is he preached a message on light and darkness. It was the verse that you read when you came in tonight. This was the message that Jesus preached. And a guy goes, hey, Jesus, can I come? Can I have you over to my house for dinner? And Jesus goes, yeah, I'll come. And when he's there, Jesus points out the man-made rules that they had established. And it says that everyone at that dinner is furious at Jesus. And he leaves. And so Luke chapter 11, verse 53, it says, as Jesus was leaving, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees became hostile. Say hostile. Hostile. You don't normally pronounce the H that way, but it just feels more hostile to say hostile. And try to provoke him with many questions. They wanted to trap him into saying something they could use against him. What's interesting is they're being hostile, they're being provoking, they're trying to trap him to prove that Jesus is the bad guy. Do you see a little bit of irony here? Like they're trying to provoke him, they're trying to trap him, they're trying to trick him so that they can go, see, Jesus, he's not as clean as you think he is. I mean, this is pure irony. It's them being evil to try to prove that Jesus has any evil inside of him. But it says Jesus leaves this, and people start to come to find Jesus again. Have you ever been in a big crowd before? Some of you go to large, like 2,000 person schools. Have any of you been at a concert with thousands of people? Okay, some of you, all right, yeah. What's the big, I've been, for last year, I took my son for his birthday to a football game. Paco and I went with our boys. We went to see the Lions play the Buccaneers. And I'll tell you, walking into that stadium, massive amount of people. And all of these people come to hear Jesus. Thousands of people. Here's what it says in Luke 12, verse 1. It says, meanwhile, the crowds grew until thousands were milling about and stepping on each other. Thousands came to hear Jesus. Thousands heard, oh, Jesus is here. Let's go listen to Jesus. Jesus is here. He's awesome. Let's go find Jesus. Let's go listen to Jesus. And here's what happens. As they're coming to hear Jesus, I never caught this before. And recently I caught this. This is really wild. It says, as they were coming to hear Jesus, they begin to push and step on each other. Does that feel a little weird? Like they're going to hear a message from a guy who's going to be like, hey, love your enemies. Pray for those who hurt you. And there's people literally pushing people through the crowd, stepping on each other like Black Friday Walmart havoc. Like people, watch the irony. People are fighting to hear a message about love and peace. People are willing to trample each other so that they could be more graceful and merciful and loving and kind. Do you see the ridiculousness of this? And it's not an isolated event. Because a couple years ago, I took JVOC students to 12 Conference. And 12 Conference is a Christian conference. The whole goal of 12 Conference is for thousands of teenagers to encounter Jesus, to grow in the relationship with God. And so there's worship there. We had, there was like Maverick City was doing worship there. And then there's a guy that was there that I had never heard of before. But all of my girl JVOX middle school students knew a guy named Kevin Quinn. Bruh, yeah. So that name might not mean much to you. It didn't mean much to me. But I'll tell you right now that the girls in that room, the middle school girls in that room, came alive. Like, I have video. I would have showed it, but none of you know who they are. But I have video of these girls who, they're literally, I got the girls good seats. I took them all the way up to the front. We were right on the front. Kevin Quinn was right there. The girls are going, right, the whole deal. And I know you think I exaggerated a little, but I promise you, I did not. Now, what was really wild to me was that Kevin Quinn was there, KB, the rapper, was there, and when both of them performed, I had people pushing and stepping on. There was a pastor who came up, who pushed me out of the way, and pushed my middle school girls. And I took this picture of him. I want you to see the picture that I took. Now, I'm not an aggressive person. I'm a passive-aggressive person. So here's what I did. I found him in front of his team, in front of his leadership team, and I said, "Hey, man, I saw you in the concert." He said, "You did?" I said, "Yeah, man. Yeah, I took a picture of you. This was when you pushed middle school girls out of the way." Now here's the deal. When KB, the Christian rapper, who's going to come out and talk about being saved from death to life. He's going to talk about victory in Jesus. He's going to talk about the message of Jesus. I literally had a guy trample one of my middle school, actually two. Camila was there with me. We both saved small children from utter death. I literally had a guy trample one of my girls, and I pulled him out and was like, "You have to be careful." Do you know what's insane about this? What's insane about this is that we could be so blind to hypocrisy that we could be literally running to hear Jesus' message of peace and mercy and grace and love and willing to crush people to get there. And this is what Jesus says. He's literally sitting back. Luke 12, verse 1, the crowds grew until thousands were milling and stepping on each other. And Jesus turned first to his disciples and warned them, "Beware the yeast of the Pharisees, the hypocrisy." Beware hypocrisy. Do you know one of the things that Jesus does not tolerate is hypocrisy? Now, if you don't know what that word means, it comes from Greek, when actors used to play multiple parts, or they'd have a mask on and they would take it off to play multiple characters. And here's the deal. When I was a freshman in high school at Ida Baker, we did the weirdest musical theater thing ever. We had a musical at Ida Baker my freshman year. In case you're wondering, this is 2005. And so How old am I? Or maybe 2006. It doesn't matter. You don't care. And so here's the deal. For whatever reason, the musical theater teacher had this musical, and there were 60 people in the cast. Huge cast, big cast, a lot of people. 60 people. Broadway doesn't have 60 people. 60 people is a lot of people to manage in a production. And there were three main characters in this musical theater. There was a mob boss who was trying to kill a young man. There was the young man who was being hunted down by the mob boss. And then there's the mob boss, or there's the guy who's running away. There's his father who owns a hotel. Now here's where things got insane. With a 60-person cast, my musical theater teacher cast me for all three main parts. Now what is the right response? And here's the deal. I literally, and listen, if you're like, wow, Josh is a great actor. No, it was a terrible musical theater production. It was absolute garbage. I literally would be like sitting reciting lines, and then I'd have to like turn around and have like a mobster accent. And my mobster accent sounds that bad. But a hypocrite is somebody who puts on multiple faces. A hypocrite is somebody who says one thing in one place but lives something else in another place. And what's really interesting is Jesus goes on, and I just want to talk you, with the few minutes I have left, I want to talk you through what Jesus teaches about hypocrisy. And here's why, because I think every person in the church who has ever hurt somebody was a hypocrite. I think everybody that you've ever encountered who said, I follow Jesus, but sinned against you, you could immediately point and say, that was hypocrisy alive. You didn't do what you said you should do. You didn't do what God said we should do. Literally, like the pain point. And here's the other part. It fractures us. I'm preaching ahead of myself. Let's go through what Jesus says. Luke 12, verse 2. This is a conversation he's having with his disciples. He says, the time is coming when everything that is covered up will be revealed, and all that is secret will be made known to all. Here's what Jesus says. Hypocrisy, never, never, never. Don't believe it. Don't think for a moment. Hypocrisy will never go unnoticed. Hypocrisy always gets found out. Hypocrisy will not stand. And you may go, well, I know somebody who faked it for a really long time. I promise you, at one point, a day is coming when the hypocrisy will itself be revealed. Hypocrisy never goes unnoticed. And listen, even if you don't see it, even if the people around you don't see it, God sees it and God will act upon it. Hypocrisy is not secret. So somebody who says one thing and acts a completely other way, you don't need to worry. God sees it. It will be exposed. It will be found out. The people who are fake, that will not last. It can't last. Because there will be a day where everything will be revealed. Hypocrisy will be seen for what it is. And so let me just say something. There's no good reason that any of us should continue to hold on to the two persons. There's no reason that any of us should hold on to the hypocrite and who I should be. There's no reason for you to hold on to this, because I'm telling you something. God already knows it. Why carry something when it's not even fooling, like it's not fooling God? God knows the real you. He cares about the real you. The mask he doesn't care about. And this is the next part, is that hypocrisy fractures your very person. It fractures who you are. Hypocrisy forces you to live a double life, sometimes a triple life. Sometimes you have a life at school, and you have a life at church, and you have a life at work, and you have a life on social media, and you have a life at one parent's and not the other parents, and you have a life with one friend group and not the other friend group, and you live different values and different virtues. In one place you do this, in another place you talk bad about people who do it. And what happens is that the fracturing of your person carries a weight. You are trying to carry two whole people on your life. And can I promise you something? That's only going to be a heavier weight of anxiety than you were ever made to carry, because God made you to be one whole person, not two halves. Gosh, I think, and listen, some of this is not your fault. You've been taught this. I was reading some research on one. It was research on the way that the teenage brain develops, and then the way the teenage brain develops on a collision course with social media and the internet and all of these things. And basically what you have been taught from the earliest age is you have one life here and another life here, and that's fine. You just carry the weight of both. And then when another place comes up, that's fine. You just carry the weight of the other one. And then when you've got the other place, now you have to carry the weight of the other. And you just keep putting on weight. And what it's doing is it's fracturing your soul. It's putting an anxiety on your person. You weren't made for hypocrisy. It was placed on you. What Jesus is actually inviting you to is a life that's just authentic. And here's what I'm not telling you to do. I'm not telling you that your authentic self is what you feel, because I need you to understand something. Your authentic self is actually who God made you to be. Your authentic self is what God created you for. And when you live in that, hypocrisy holds no weight. But some of Jesus' harshest words come at the end of his sermon here. Luke 12:4. This is harsh. I need you to hear this, because you need to see how serious Jesus is about hypocrisy. He says, "Dear friends, don't be afraid of those who want to kill your body. They cannot do any more to you after that." What's he talking about? He's talking about the reality that the reason that we would act one way in one place and talk about it differently in another is because we're scared. I don't know if you realize this, but hypocrisy is fear's baby. Hypocrisy comes from a place where we're afraid. Well, I'm scared of what they're going to think about me. And Jesus goes, no. You don't need to be scared. You don't even need to be scared if somebody is threatening your life. Hypocrisy is not worth this. Like, even if someone were to say, do this for the sake of your life, Jesus is like, no. That's not even worth the weight of hypocrisy. He goes on to say that we should have deep fear for the Lord. And that might feel like a strange thing. Let me try to unpack this really fast. The fear of the Lord in the Bible is a phrase that means deep, utter awe, respect. Are we supposed to live with fear in the sense of, oh my gosh, God will crush me today? No. Do we live in fear in the sense of, I would do absolutely nothing to broach my relationship with God? Yes. And here's the reality. That if you live afraid of people, if you live life afraid of people with hypocrisy in, then you ultimately do have a reason to be afraid of God. But if you live with the fear of God, you have no reason to actually be scared of God or ever to be afraid of people. Do you understand? That when we honor God and give him what he is due, when we live for him, when we align ourselves with him and we live this authentic relationship with him, I don't have to be afraid of people. I don't have to be scared of God. And I know this is important to really emphasize, because some of you have the picture of God in your mind as somebody who's holding rocks, waiting for you to say a bad word or to look a certain way or to watch a certain clip or to laugh at something at the wrong time or to do something, and then God's going to crush you. And that is not who God is. That's not who he is at all. That's not the picture. The picture of Scripture is boldly approach the throne of grace because Jesus has gone in before us. The picture of Scripture is the loving Father. That's why Jesus says, when you pray, say, Father God. The picture of God is not one that wants you fractured, driven by fear, trying to hide something that you can't hide. So what do we do? What do we do with this? Do you know what's so tricky? Is that hypocrisy is a yeast. It's nearly invisible. It sneaks in. It really comes with exposure. You probably didn't invite it. You probably didn't wake up at any point and say, man, I'd love to be a hypocrite. I spoke with a young person recently who shared with me that there was one day that they were walking past at school. They were walking past somebody at school, and this person at school had a Bible open, and they had and it was a good Bible. It was a Bible with tabs. And not only did it have tabs, but they had a notebook, and I think they said it had like they had all kinds of like colored notes in it, and that's when you're like, oh, they serious, right? And this person told me, they said, I walked outside, and that person looked at me and said, you're going to hell. Now, I don't know a whole lot about this person. I don't know their backstory. But I know immediately that those words put a bad taste in somebody's mouth about the name and message of Jesus. And I know that this person never wants to come back to church because church people did that. Do you understand why Jesus is so severe about hypocrisy? Because it breaks people. And I think one of the things that we need to recognize is that hypocrisy will be sneaky. I wish tonight that I could say, hey, tonight we're going to pray and you're going to leave, and you will never have a hypocritical thought or temptation or desire ever again. And we'll pray for it and it'll go away and you'll be fine the rest of your life. And I don't get to do that for you. What I do get to pray with you tonight is for today. And tonight, we get to say, God, would you search me? Is there anything inside of me, God, that you would like to move out? Is there any way inside of me? And what else we can do tonight is we could pray and ask God, God, if anything starts to show itself, would you reveal it? Listen, there are plenty of moments where I sit back and go, oh my goodness, this is contrary to everything that I say and teach and believe. And I need you to hear something. The Bible says that God has new mercies every single day. Every day. You think you messed it up bad today? Man, God's got brand new mercy tomorrow. Fresh, untouched, unfazed by yesterday. He's ready for tomorrow to be a complete start over. And that's only a metaphor, because the reality is it doesn't have to wait till midnight. It's right now. Right? Like right now, God has new mercy for us. And we can go, God, can I have some of that mercy? And he's like, oh yeah.